how do you drive development in your area with single family housing at the same time produce profit for not only your housing, but also, as you'll see, other areas of your organization. We're going to be focusing on new construction. With that being said, Al Pena, the chair of FMCRC, national, and also co-founder of National Minority Community Reinvestment Cooperative. And I'd like to introduce our general contractor, Sergio Moranto. Sergio?
Hi, I'm Sergio Moranto, general contractor here in Tampa, Florida. I've been in the business for about 20 years. I've been in the business of doing the work myself too since I was 17. So I've been doing it for some time and trying to keep it going.
Doug?
Oh yes, Doug McCarthy. My background is I studied architecture in college. I actually switched over to building construction and then over to engineering. Never sat for my PE, so technically, excuse me, I'm a architectural and structural designer versus either an architect or an engineer. As Al will explain as well too, is just to keep costs down. I'm cheaper than an architect would be on these projects.
Yeah, folks, as you'll see later on, that's very critical that all of you go out there, whether it's a gut rebuild, an addition, or new construction, you find yourself a draftsman that will work with an architect and an engineer to get it sealed, but you'll save yourself about, you cut that cost, by 2/3. We're going to go over the training over the coming weeks and months. It's going to go over new construction, gut rebuilds, and rehabs. We'll be live on location throughout these series, and not only going to be going to Baltimore, Detroit, and other cities where we're building and show you specific building as it's happening so you can better understand the actual X's and O's of what you need to start building yourself profitable housing, affordable housing. One of the things we'll go over is, listen, the single most important, actually the second most important, the single most important component of your building a profitable affordable housing is capital. We'll go into that at another time and a little bit later. But your second most important piece is people like Doug, people like Sergio. Your general contractor is absolutely the single most important person. They're the quarterback, you're the coach, but they're the quarterback. But you're going to have trades, plumbers, electricians, suppliers. It's really critical, as we'll go into a little bit later, but more in detail at another session. How do you build up a very focused and direct construction infrastructure team that will build your homes and understand what you try to deliver, and actually will be able to cut your costs as you start to build this really what I call effective construction team. Capital access, we'll get into accessing bank such construction lines of credit. Listen, I will not build with government money. I build only with bank money, and it's a responsibility of the banks. And it's one of the reasons why I decided to do this, to show that there is a demand out there in our communities. But the missing link is Black and Latino affordable housing developers who can understand how to more effectively build without government money, but with construction line of credit from banks, and also using, as you'll see a little bit, using a for-profit model that we've kind of perfected over the years. We'll go into financial management, very critical, folks. As you get capital, we're actually going to have our bookkeeper in one of the sessions go over how do you absolutely take care and maintain your books that will then lend itself not only to the audits, but also you got to listen. If you don't know if you're making money or losing money, it's like an old boss once told me, if you don't know where you're going, any bus will take you there. And the financial management overview session that we'll get into, we'll go into each of these things with bookkeeping, audits, and ultimately how to help you build equity within your business. We'll go on to property valuations of maximizing your sales, increasing your appraisals. Listen, behind me, you'll see some pictures. This house that we're in now, a bank appraised it, but actually it was 520, but ours is going to come back at 580. And I'll show you how we're able to do that, not only with this house, but we've been able to increase the comp valuations of our housing in every single house that we built. And as we get into this particular piece of new construction, it'll give you a little bit more easier understanding of how you do that. You control it, not it control you. This is very important, but you must control the process from the sale to the appraisal to the closing, but even the appraisals to the rental and how it gets onto your balance sheet. You know, real quick, we started this a little over 6 years ago. We started with 25,000 of equity and only $150,000 line of credit from Regions Bank. We now have over $13 million of equity and you know, dozens of rentals. But more importantly, why is that equity important? That equity allows you to leverage for more capital to build more. We were focusing on rentals, but now we're focusing more on the for sale piece. As you'll see, when we're taking that the cash from that for sale and buying rentals cash, that allows us to reduce our rental rates. How do we do this? This is the single most important piece of the business, folks. I cannot reiterate this to you. I call it Robin Hood, our Robin Hood model. Steal from the rich, bring it back to the poor. The Black and Latino leaders on this call today, you know very well, it's been the opposite, right? And more importantly, what I don't like about, you know, whether it be from Washington, D.C. or your city, you know, if you're dependent on city money, they're telling you where to build, how to build it, and how much to make. Sort of like NSP, remember when NSP was around? They told you, they even capped it at, I think it was like 8% return. You could, and that did not even put into consideration the soft costs. You know, so I did not participate in NSP, and I was asked to, you know, to the degree that there was a $60 million venture going on, but I wouldn't because they were going to control where we built, how we built, and I would not have been able to implement my Robin Hood model. What's the Robin Hood model? You're also not going to build in low, moderate income neighborhoods. You're also going to build in high income neighborhoods, but you're going to take that profit and bring it back into your program. Let me show you some, or your services. Let me show you some examples of what we've done. This house here, we just sold this house, Bartlett. You see, I'm showing you the map and you're gonna start to see kind of a common denominator. I love water, but the reason I love water, values, whether it's a rental or whether it's a for sale. Now, not only water, but there's downtowns, shopping centers, things that will increase your product at the end is very important. This house here, we just actually closed on this last week. This house here, we made about $225,000. It was a demo. We bought the house, we demolished and built a new house. We made, and you can actually see the lot after we damaged here. But we took that money, and this is important. This is actually the profit from that house is actually going to, let's do this here. That house that we just closed, that I showed you the picture of, we are able to buy, we just closed on this last week as well, in one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in all of Tampa, New Tampa, a high income area. We're going to show, and as you can see the map, it's incredible location, but we bought this cash. We bought this cash. And when we're done, because of what we did with Bartlett, and again, the Robin Hood model, we're going to put about 100,000 into it, 120,000 into it. When we're done, this value you see of 529 here, this house should be valued at over 700. And by the way, we purchased the house at 300,000. You put 100,000, 20 into it, and it's worth 700, 725. This house though is going to be a rental we're gonna dedicate this for military, firemen, teachers, and nurses. It's got a pool inside of it. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, beautiful home with a view, with a pool, and in incredible schools. So a moderate income family, that a working day family will be able to live in here and go to their children will be able to go to some of the best schools in the city. I'll show you another example. Let me see. Another example we'll show you. Oh, how do we do this? All right, this is, again, you can see the map. The map, this house we just closed 2 weeks ago. We purchased it for 130. We put in about 90, and we sold it for 465,000. You do the math. This will show you, let me show you something. One of the things, and I'll show you what we're taking with that cash and purchasing a rental for low moderate family, cash on the water. Let me show you some of the finishes on this house. Oh, where's that? How can we do that? All right, I'm not sure if I can figure that out, but if you zoom on that, you'll see the finishes. And by the way, you're going to start to see in all these homes that we've given you the addresses to, the finishes are the same, which we're going to go into and you find your finishes. All right, so here's what that's going to allow us to purchase. As you can see, this is a water home, right on the water. We purchased this cash for around 65,000. We'll put about 80, 90 into it, and it'll be worth almost 400,000. I'm not sure if the picture is going to come in, but I wanted to show you if I can see a picture. Oh, there we go. Look at the view of the bay from the living room and from the bedroom. Incredible view. Again, Robin Hood model. We purchased and rebuilt the home in a high-income area, allowing us to purchase another high-income area home, but not only produce it as a affordable rental, and by the way, at a 30 to 40 to 50% reduction of rate versus the market rate, but folks, taking that value and increasing our equity position on our balance sheet significantly, which is important. We'll get into it a little bit. All right. This is a house that we're working on now. And then Doug, I'll have you, once we get through, this is a house that we purchased and they're in process of getting a permit. And we'll go through the plans right now after this. You can see water. This house we purchased for 130. We'll put about 150 in it, but it's going to be worth about 620. And we're showing, I think what we'll do, and we'll go over the plans. That's what the house, it's a small house. This is a major gut rebuild that we're going to do in the house. And let me go through the plans. And we'll go through a little bit of the plans because I want to give you an idea of how we do this. All right. That house that you just saw, here is the existing site plan. Here is existing floor plan. It's 2-bedroom, 1-bath, right? You've got, but what we saw, a lot of space here. Whenever we're rebuilding to add value, we look to where we can expand a house and make it more valuable, but also more livable, but also more appealing. Remember, even if you're going to make it a rental, you're going to have to sell it, or you may sell it at another time, and you want to make that as appealing and sell as quick as you can, because remember, we're going to talk a little bit later, time is money. You see that existing plan, and here goes the plan that we just submitted 2 weeks ago to the city of Bradenton to expand it. Doug, any comments on when you put together this plan, some things that you were looking at that kind of, worried you, or things that you, really had to do or focus on to expand this house?
Well, yeah, we look at the site, like you say, because I know we had some big trees on the site and wanted to stay away from them as well. And this actually has a pool in the back, and we wanted to take advantage of that as well for the pool. Another consideration too was the kitchen location, just for cost savings. Excuse me. I left the kitchen pretty much where it was. We just flipped the plan, so at least our plumbing's in the same space, and then the existing bathroom we just expanded. It's still sitting in the same exact space, but we bumped it out a few feet toward the back, and then of course added a nice master suite on the right-hand side because they really didn't have one. And then that has access directly to the backyard as well. So there's things like that help with costs. Try not to move too much plumbing, and avoid some of the trees and things like that that we don't want to have to remove, which adds another cost as well. So.
You got it. And Sergio, any thoughts when you submitted the permit, things that you had to focus on, or, I know we're getting a survey right now, but as you submit the permit for permitting?
Yeah, basically, always submitting a permit, the application for a permit, there's always sometimes, typically, they'll kick it back and then they'll want something different. But overall, that process is pretty simple as of going in and just to get the application done, getting it in, and then they'll come back and now they'll get a survey, we're waiting on the survey to get done, and then go from there and then continue on.
And to the audience, we're gonna, in about the 3 sessions, we're gonna go actually deeper into the permitting process of a gut rebuild. And by the way, speaking of that, I just wanted to give you an overview, of this, because next Monday, we're gonna be doing a live session here at 15912 Dawson Ridge. That is a gut rebuild, a major gut rebuild. We're gonna demolish the interior, which is semi-demolished now. The roof of this house is in dire need of replacement, including the subroof. So you'll be able to see how we're going to approach and what we're doing for a gut rebuild. But I love the gut rebuilds are the most difficult, the single most difficult construction project. New construction is actually the easiest, but gut rebuilds are the most difficult, folks, but the most profitable, whether you're going to sell it to bring it back, that money back into your program. And by the way, I take a lot of which we'll go into a little bit, I take a lot of my profit and I reduce the cost of my affordable housing as well. But this house, we'll go a lot more into detail of a gut rebuild and the permitting process next week. This Robin Hood model, it's blending profits with high income housing into affordable housing programs and services. Which brings me to, I'll show you some of the examples, but let me give you kind of an overview of how we've taken profit. Remember, this Robin Hood model your program will not work without Robin Hood, because, listen, the banks, there were some banks and folks who gave me some grief. They said, hey, it's not in a poor neighborhood. Well, no, but I'm helping poor people, and how can I help a poor family, a low moderate family, if we're poor ourselves and can't afford to do anything? So that's another benefit of not using government money. We just do what we want. But there were a couple of banks, as you see the sign behind me, Truist Bank and Regions have really stepped up. I cannot applaud Truist Bank and Regions of Bank enough. But what have we done with some of our Robin Hood profits? Remember, we've sold over, sold over 350 homes the past 6 years. And so we built a children's cancer beach sanctuary, which we'll show you right now. We've increased home values by over $250 million in Black and Latino neighborhoods by being able to come back and reduce for sale prices because of the money we're making on the for sale profit side. We donated 6 homes, including 1 fully furnished, 6 homes, rebuilt homes donated, 5 donated vehicles, and all this last 6 years. we've donated over $100,000 to other nonprofits. And our average rents have been reduced by an average of 38% below market rate. I've even got some Black Latino families living on the golf course with 50% rental reduction rates. So this is what Robin Hood has been able to allow us to do. But at the same time, increasing value. I purchased this condo. I knew we wanted to take some of our profits. And one of my things, like each of you on this phone, you'll have something you really love, right? Something that's near and dear to your heart. You know, that's what you can do with some of the profit. For me, one of the things I love, and the single thing I love most, is helping children with cancer. And so I love, for those of you over 40, 45, 50 years old, we all remember the movie Beaches, right? And so I myself am a person who struggled with cancer, and I understand the value of what being at the beach, being on the water, what it does to you psychologically. So we purchased this condo here, gut rebuilt it, and as you can see the finishes, but I bought it for $375, or rather $425, put $100,000 to it. It's now worth $700,000. Not only am I able to increase the value of the equity in my balance sheet, again, which is critical, particularly if you want to build up your rental portfolio. Here are some pictures of some of the families. I think there's been over 80 some families who stayed at the beach sanctuary, all with cancer. Unfortunately, some have died, but they send us a lot of pictures. I don't take pictures, but they actually send us pictures and say, we want to thank you, Mr. Pina, because we really had a beautiful time. It was so beautiful. As you can see the background, it's a corner unit. You see nothing but water, and you can see the sunset. You know, so they've been able to enjoy this. But this would not have happened without my Robin Hood, which brings me into building your foundation, building your new construction team. The very first thing you're going to have to do, remember, don't get into friendships. You know, I would fire, like I told people, I have fired my own daughter, and I love her, but I don't love you. So if you don't do a good job and a good price and a high quality outcome, you can't work with us on our team. But your construction team, foundation, framers, plumbers, electricians, graders, HVAC, drywall, and what we actually do is we build that. We actually have, as you'll see at the end when I do the tour, we have a handyman for each job that does all the finishes, and that allows us to really streamline our operation. You know, this house, as we get into this house, right that we're at, this is a good place, you know, to go back again at the same time, show you the process of where we started with on designing. What do we do with the lot? Best, you know, when you get a house, like this house, what we're at now, as you'll see in a little bit, this house was pretty much distressed, so we demolished it. And we started from a process of evaluating the best use of land, as we call it. This right now is an actual, we just closed this lot, 1113 North River Hills Drive, Temple Terrace. We just purchased this lot, actually, we closed on it Friday. And this lot here is going to be, this is going to be a Robin Hood action. This isn't going to be affordable, as you're going to see why we purchased this lot. By the river, as you can see, but here's what I think it's important. This house behind it on the next block on the river is valued at over $1 million. You know, I don't say that to brag or to say, "Woo, you know, it's an expensive home," but it makes it very, you know, it brings itself into the process of what do we do and what are we going to do to maximize this investment. As you're going to see as we get into more of the X's and O's, that's going to be critical in everything you do. Maximization and utilization of scarce resources, which includes, by the way, time is the most valuable asset. Capital, you know, you have opportunity, you know, you have quality, or rather a person's expertise is valuable as well. The house we're sitting in now, it has over $225,000 of equity. You can see here, we had to decide what, not only did we decide what are we going to do with this, is it going to be for sale or a rental? We decided a rental for a military family at a 40% discount. What are we going to build on the lot? One of the things that you'll see later, this house was facing 11th Street, which kind of felt like an alley, which also, and you can see it's one story, which also impacts the value. As you can see, we got approval to turn the house and put it on the main street, facing the main street, and also making it a 2-story, which increases the value of the home, of the new construction home. You've got, again, not only is it a process of evaluating the house on the front side, you know, what are you going to build, but how you're going to build it, what materials you're going to use, and even the process of selecting your construction team to do the job is going to be important. As you can see, this, I wanted to give you kind of just a quick snapshot. This is the grading. We demolished the house here. As you saw in the previous slide, this is the, as you'll see in a little bit, this is the building of the foundation. By the way, folks, the foundation is critical. You're going to see a little later, a little bit, where we even screwed up, and on the foundation, the city screwed up, that impacted the home overall. This is the beginning of the stem wall foundation. You can see some of this, the framing, which we're going to have a whole session just on framing, be it gut rebuild or be it new construction. The economics of 11th Street. Now we're going to get into what I call the 5 stages of new construction for 11th Street. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to go over stage 1, but I'm going to have Sergio and Doug take it from stage 2 and stage 5. Economics. What I looked at, I had an acquisition cost of $70,000. I had a demolition cost of $6,500, and overall construction costs we factored in at about $250,000 to $60,000. As you can see, that versus the valuation of 580, we had a nice little gap in there. We had a large enough equity position that's why I decided to make that a rental. Because, you know, what I like to see is at least a 35%, the minimum 30% increase in the value of the end product versus your overall cost. And for me, I love putting families into beautiful homes in nice neighborhoods at major reduced prices they never would have been able to get. And as I can't tell you how many times we feel good about our mission when we have so many families coming and saying thank you. The second piece, after you purchase the home, you demolish it, and then you have decided the plan. Now we get into the review of the actual seal plans and permitting. And Doug and Sergio, I'm going to ask you to go through real quick, kind of when you looked at this, Doug and Sergio, what you considered when you, after the demolition, and there were some changes, you know, like you asked for some changes, they were asking us to do some things, the city, but go through the whole process of, you know, of the permitting process, putting together the plans. What was your thinking of, as you put together, Doug and Sergio, what was your thought process as you developed this house and designed this house and started the construction? Doug, would you like to go?
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, initially, you know, Al kind of leads the vision of what he sees for an area, and we knew we wanted a 2-story. And as he said, you know, to change the look, how this house faces, because there's nothing facing that street at all. So it's working with the city on that as well. Where this house is, it's I want to say I think it's in Seminole Heights, so there's some setback issues with the city. We had to do what you call a block average, and had to get special permission to omit, I think it was the house next door, which was going to throw our whole plan off with the city, because the house it sat so far back on the lot, it was going to push our house too far back, and we wanted to have a detached carport on the backside. So that was a consideration, and working with the city and also with Tampa, the oak trees. We've got to stay away a certain amount of feet depending on the size of the tree. So that helped, minimize, where we could put the house and place it on the lot. So a lot of times with the city of Tampa, anyway, there's a lot of back and forth, or could be issues with siting the house, more so than anything else with them. But I know Sergio, I think, have you had any issues with the city or just kind of trouble that we had to work through? I know we had to move, I think, the carport, I think a foot or two to the back, because there was a setback or an issue between the house and the carport.
Yeah, we went back and forth with the city quite a bit on this one, mainly because of the way that it was designed. And the funny thing is, like with this house, when I did get the actual approved set of plans, the city sent us the approved set of plans, they sent us two different sets that were approved. And one architectural with the architectural portion of it, and and they didn't tell you, and they didn't even tell me which one to follow, which, another thing I'm following up, if you didn't follow up and you do it wrong, then you're in trouble.
You got it.
Yeah, so.
I think what's important here, folks, is in the process, I think one thing you're going to see, and this is very important, another reason why I like our model of not using government money, they've learned push back. You can push back. Every design practically we've ever done, we've pushed back to the city. We're the customer, not the city. So many times I see builders, particularly nonprofits, they go to the flow of the city, and it's almost like we're servants and we work for them. No. They work for us, and you are the designer of your community. And so that means you got to defend it. There are many, I can give you many stories where we defended, and pushed back hard, just like we did with this house. And we got what we wanted because we thought it was in the best interest of the community, but at the same time, being in the best interest of our balance sheet and our P&L. And by the way, as you're going through this, and remember, I'd like to show you something on the plan, on the elevation. You can't see the carport, but here, even as you're going, we had it approved, but we saw we messed up on our plans. Remember, nothing's perfect. That's one of the things you're going to learn. And that's why we've been doing this. Like my old boss and mentor, Teleco, used to tell me, Al, let's go out and make new mistakes. And the problem is, mistakes are part of life. It's how you adapt to those mistakes and make sure you don't repeat those mistakes again. And one of the things we noticed when we were building, because this house was supposed to initially be facing the other way, so here you can see there's no windows. We found that out at the beginning of out there was actually construction. During construction, I went, no, we need two windows, and we made the adaptation and put the two windows in, which is again very important that that we're able to adapt as the process is flowing, moving forward. All right, now we go up to the lining. Sergio, can you talk about lining up the subs for scheduling the work to be done, setting up the timeline for the subs, and the follow up on the subs for making sure that the timeline is being connected. Remember, folks, as you're going to hear a little bit, time is money. We're going to get into the economics of this.
Yes, yeah, so basically, you always, me personally, I'm always following up, and I'm always checking at the beginning with all my subs to make sure that we're going to be on a timeline, or we're going to stay on that timeline. Now, things happen, everybody's human, things happen. So I understand scheduling gets messed up sometimes here and there, but overall, try to get a timeline down with the subs in the beginning. And following up, always following up.
What's the first thing you do as soon as you order, as soon as we get the permits, you get the approved permits, what's the very first thing that you do?
First thing we do is order windows and trusses. Always the first thing, because those take the longest to get. So we always get that in and try to get all the material lists together quickly.
Now to that point, folks, this is very important. Remember, I learned this in the military. No game plan, no operation plan ever went as planned. It's how you acclimate and you shift your operation plan according to what's happening in the real world. And right now, trusses are taking 4 months, folks. So what we're doing in all our new construction in our, just like that house you saw in Bradenton and expansions, we're no longer using trusses. We're going back to the good old fashioned way. We're using rafters. We're building rafters. We're having the roof, the subroof built as we frame it. Two, we're no longer special ordering windows, hurricane impact windows. Believe it or not, in the plans that we're putting forth, we're actually, get this, we're actually going to Home Depot and buying stock windows and putting them in our new construction and our rehabs. Why? It's 4 months versus 1 day. And don't ask me why we can, they're available at Home Depot and Lowe's, but they're not available from a national supplier until like 4 months, 3 months. We waited 4.5 months, 5 months for one set of windows.
Easy. And another thing on that too is from the design point on Doug, like a draftsman or architect, make sure that you put those stock size windows that Home Depot or Lowe's carries on your plan, so they are approved at that size, those stock sizes, and they're easier to get.
And by the way, we're going to get into a little bit of, I'm going to have Sergio go through actually some steps of big picture, a little bit on at the end, right after this video, where we screwed up on a stem wall foundation. The most important part of your build, whether it's new construction or expansion, is that foundation. All right, folks. Again, why is that important? I'm going to show you an example. Just a house that we built 3 years ago. This stem wall, it was obviously not Scott, but this stem wall here, this is was supposed to be this house here that I'm circling with the mouse. You see this stem wall, how high it's supposed to be. Now we do that because obviously for flooding. This house is what it ended up. Look at how low this house is. Below, it's actually below street level. And here's the irony, folks. This house, wait a minute. This house is actually below, this house here is across the street from that house. Think about that. This general contractor, who no longer is with us, obviously, allowed this, and by the way, this got approved by the city of Tampa, even they made a mistake. So this got built, that's across the street from here, and you can see it's the same house model, yet vastly different. And actually, you know what, one thing I forgot, I apologize. I think, there was a slide. With that being said, can you go through some of the steps, Sergio, from the grading? What are the steps to building this house? Large level. I mean, sort of like, what are the trades? When do they step in the process of building a new construction home?
Yeah, the first thing is you're going to obviously scrape your lot, have the grader come out. The grader is going to be the first, and that's important too, because if your grading is not correct, that's going to be messed up at the end too, and you're going to have problems, drainage problems, issues with not draining away from the house. Because if it doesn't drain away from the house, guess what's going to happen? It's going to erode your foundation, and then you're going to have all kinds of problems going in later on. So grading is typically first. You get your foundation started, your footers with Scott, as Scott said. And again, I can't push how important, how crucial it is. If your foundation is not right, you're going to have problems from everywhere else, from framing to tile to everything else. Is going to be it's not going to be right. Nothing will be right. As of that being said, once that footer's laid, then that stem wall goes up. we fill the stem wall with dirt. If it's a stem wall foundation, which here we do a lot of stem wall foundations. Some can be on grade, just right to the dirt that's there. But typically it's stem wall here. After that's done, we fill it with dirt, compact it, just make sure compaction, you're always getting compaction, so you don't have problems with your slab. And then we get our plumber to come in and do all this underground work. And then if there's any islands or anything like that, we have our electrical guy come in and do all his electrical underground if need be to go to the island. After that, we get all our inspections done as that's going along, and we get our plumbing all, and then they come back, put our dirt back in, get all that squared away, get that done, get our foundation poured, our slab actually poured. So once our slab's poured, then we can go from there and start getting our framing. If it's framed, if it's block, get your walls up, your exterior walls, get all your roof trusses on. Start all that, get your interior walls done, and then you can start on your interior, get your all your ductwork in, getting that in, and get your ductwork, get all your finish start. You actually start getting some of your finished stuff in at that stage, but mainly at first you want to get all your framing done, get all that approved, get your insulation done. Once your insulation's done, you can start covering up your walls with sheetrock, as long as all your other inspections are completed, and going from there. And once your sheetrock's in, then you can start your painting, start all your finish work. Then from there, your flooring, and just go from there and do all your finish work.
Yeah, and then that's when you come in and do, and we're gonna go on a tour, and then to talk about the finishes, which is very, very critical, you know, and after we do the tour, I'm gonna have one more slide on the economics to show how how do you economize, your construction, your finishes, and, because everything you have to build, it's like what you're gonna build, folks, you're gonna build, whether it's rehab or new construction or a gun rebuild, you're building like Ford, who built Ford Motor, you're building an assembly line. And you have to have consistency, but we've built many, many homes, and we still have a lot of the same subs. And those subs are used, whether it's a finish, whether it's a foundation now, Scott, whether it's the framing, the electrical, they know what we want and expect. And a lot of the time it's the same house. So the consistency, because it's the same, whether even if it's not the same house, it's the same product, it's the same product or the finish that we expect and want, and what that allows the house to be built quicker and a lot more efficient while maintaining its quality. So if you don't mind, we're going to do a quick tour and look at some more finishes, which again is critical for the valuation of the house, the appraisal of the house, but also whether you're going to sell it or somebody's going to love living there and renting it. All right, if you don't mind, we're going to go through a little tour. Let me stop this. I think now we tested this earlier, so we'll see. All right. First off, in their kitchens, we use the same kitchen cabinets. I've used the same kitchen cabinets since I've been building over 6-7 years ago. And obviously we put granite, but we buy granite by the bulk. That allowed us to reduce our granite cost by over 60%, about 45%. And you can see these are self-closing wood cabinets. Anything when he's building out. And by the way, we have the same cabinet company who comes in and puts the cabinets. Any words of advice when they're putting the kitchen cabinets in?
Just follow up, just watch the installers when they're putting them in, because they do make mistakes too, but just be on top of them. But they should follow the layout, and the layout's on the plan typically for new construction, and they come out and measure beforehand too, and the granite the same thing. Just get a good installer.
Yeah,
it's crucial.
And if some of those, and by the way, folks, if some of the houses that we had earlier that we showed online, you're going to see the same. They all look alike inside, right? You look at the flooring. Now we use, instead of tile, we're now using waterproof wood flooring throughout the entire house, and both the renters and the buyers love it. Our windows, all our windows will look like this. They're all encased, right? It looks nice. It adds value. I mean, something as simple that costs very, very little adds to the value of the house, like, encasing your walls. And one of the things we do on all our houses that we build new construction, and when we can in a rebuild, is tray ceilings. A tray ceiling in the living room and a tray ceiling, as you'll see, in the master bedroom. Here's the outside. Hopefully I don't get, we put something simple like travertine on the floor of the porch, which allows us to not only increase value, but even the way it looks, and increasing the perception of the quality of house. We're going to show you here, all new sod, of course. The house was facing that way, and we got the city to approve. Doug and Sergio got the city to approve it to face this way. As you can see, we're going to end up putting a fence. We're going to wait for we just started advertising on the military, MacDill Air Force Base for this house. And once the family's selected, we're going to build a backyard fence to the way they like. And by the way, folks, we started putting pineapples on the front porches of all houses. Why? It's piña. Al piña. Piña stands actually for pineapple in Spanish. So, all right, I'm using a little bit of vanity in my building. Well, this is the water closet. I mean, for the water heater. But folks, what I wanted to point something to point out is that one thing I told Doug and Sergio, space. You can see there's closet space even behind. So we are able to get closet space underneath the stairwell to add, value and ease of living, basically the buyers love it. Laundry room, we always like to have a separate laundry room. This has 2.5 bathrooms. So this has a bathroom shared by guests. This is, again, tray ceiling, flooring. We have closet in our new houses, we build dual walk-in closets in all our master bedrooms. It's technology, but we're going to just show you the bedrooms upstairs. It's going to be this, I like to brag about, our custom built stairs. I'm going to end this before we start taking questions. Let me pull up a slide, but this to me is how I've approached business from day one when I worked for big companies to now. The economics of business, really, this is how you should approach your business, to make sure that you're finding the pockets of profit and making sure that you become more attractive for capital. Business is real simple. It's maximization and utilization of scarce resources, with time being the scarcest resource, as well as money and actually demand for your product or service. Opportunity cost is the second piece. Opportunity cost, in a nutshell, you can read what it says, but in a nutshell says, I've only got $1 million, but there's 12 homes that I can buy. What is the best, and I can only afford to buy 3 or 4 of them. Which 3 or 4 should I buy? Based on not only factory, not only profit, but also at the same time, your mission of providing affordable housing or assisting low moderate income families. How do you marry those two? And that is where, I guess, that is the very essence and foundation of whether you're going to be successful or fail, or basically, lose money in your housing. So that is something that I think all of us should really focus on, is that in the end, maximization and utilization of scarce resources. Remember, time being the scarcest resource there is. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, the richest man on this planet, has the same amount of minutes each day as you do. And that's why, for those of you who know me, I don't like to waste time, and I get very upset when people waste my time, because we are in a very serious mission here on the communities and families that we serve and help. So with that being said, again, we're gonna, next week, we're gonna have a government bill. We're gonna go in more detail. And the subsequent sessions, we're actually gonna take everything you see and we're gonna chop it up into very specific pieces and spend an hour, over an hour on every individual component so you can better understand more of the true mechanics and X's and O's of building a new construction or building a rehab house. With that being said, Robin?
Yes, thank you everyone for joining us on this call. It's a lot of great information. Like Al said, it can be a lot of information, but it's good to retain it. A lot of people asked, is this going to be recorded? Yes, it's being recorded right now, and it'll be available on the housingpros.org website this week. Okay, there's a few questions already in the chat, but if you do have questions, please raise your hand, use the emoji button, the reactions button to click raise hand. And I'll go ahead and unmute you to answer that question. But let's just go with the first two questions. Al, I got, have you used sustainable materials in your projects? Low VOC, FSC wood, alternate insulation, etc. And how has it impacted the budget and added value to the home?
I'll answer sort of the big picture on that, and I have Sergio answer that. I will not. We'll always look to save money without compromising the quality of the house. Remember this. Always look to become more efficient, cost effective, but never, ever at the price of affecting the quality of your product. So with that being said, I have not personally seen any sustainable products, like even the insulation and like that.
Standard.
No. I haven't seen anything that really will impact our bottom line without affecting the quality of our house. And remember, some of this, you have to also get, everything is about getting at every stage, getting your work approved, right, by the city or the county inspector. So some of these products doesn't meet code for individual cities.
Okay, and another question, did the address change when you changed the direction of the home?
Oh, good question. No, it did not. But we had to talk to the post office post person, right?
Yeah.
Did you talk to the post woman here?
Post lady, yeah, she still wanted her mailbox on the other street.
Yeah, she wanted the mailbox on 11th Street, but again, we had to go out and talk to the mail person so we can come to an agreement, right? But no, we actually ended up getting the mail on the main face of the main street, the mailbox.
Okay. So anybody, I don't see any hands raised. Oh, never mind. I see one. Charles Tucker, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you.
Hello. Two questions. Here in Detroit, appraised values can be an issue for new construction, where the new construction costs are going to exceed the appraised values of the existing properties. Any help with that potential problem?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I've always worried about, even now, we worry about, obviously new construction is going to be more expensive than a rebuild in many regards. The way I've approached that, how you approach it in Detroit, unfortunately, if the value, if you're selling it, and if it doesn't meet, let's say you're at $100 per square foot for finished product, and you're building a 2,000, you've got 225,000. Remember, you want to make, you want to bring back, about at least 20% return on your house, unless obviously you're making some profit on the other. Remember, there's a Robin Hood that allows you to subsidize that. So that's what I've done, Mr. Tucker. I've done new construction in areas that the finished product cost did not meet what I could sell it for, but I subsidized that with some of upscale housing I sold in other areas. For Detroit, and also where you build in Detroit, there's certain, it's, you know, I would focus more on the rebuilds. There's a lot of gut rebuild opportunities, but at the same time, folks, what I did with this house and actually on what I've done in a lot of situations, if you go into an area, you focus, if you're going to start building in an area, I like to focus on an area like this area here. I was the first one to build in this neighborhood. I built probably 8 new homes and probably 10 rehabs in this area. And we've actually doubled the home values, a predominant black area in Tampa. But what I did was I actually purchased a land bank. I've learned that because when you start to build in an area and you start with gut rebuilds, I would start to purchase lots and land bank them for a couple of years as you build up the valuation. And here's why. I learned that the hard way. I built up and actually this area, and then a developer who builds high scale product, they ended up coming in and buying a lot and outbidding me versus, you know, I had already purchased, I think 6 and held on 6, which now I regret it. I wish I had an opportunity 3 years ago to buy about 20 lots, 20 properties in the area. So I would actually start out with the rehabs and then maybe land bank the lots because as you build these rebuilds, you're going to increase the valuation points. You're going to increase the valuation of the homes in an area. Remember, a gut rebuild, by the way, if I buy a property for $100,000 and I put $100,000 into it, I'll see that sell praise at $250 to $275. So remember, when that happens several times, it starts to kick up the values of all the surrounding homes. So what that's going to allow you to do is take that lot and build it out. But remember, there's going to be speculators who see you working and building up the values in that area, and they're going to come in and snatch it at a higher price than you if you go or give into a bidding war. So if you target an area, get capital or use some of your profits to land bank properties in an area. So the new construction, which always has the highest impact on values in an area.
Thank you, Charles. Martin has a question. Martin Evers. That's Pastor
Hey, hey, how you doing, Al? How's everybody doing? Hey, awesome. The question I had was, where do you find your homes? And then, if you're outside of your regular market, like we're in Detroit, so we would go into the suburbs or even out of state. How will we find homes to invest in? And do you have a minimum profit that you use when you're evaluating if you're going to purchase a home or not?
Good question. First off, let me kind of reverse that on, do we have a kind of a formula on what we got to return? On my Robinhood housing, remember, that's housing that I'm buying for nothing but pure profit or for pure profit. To help out on the low moderate income end. Yes, I do. I like to get at least a 30% return minimum. But right now we're averaging more like 45 to 50% return. So that, you know, and the greater return allows me to do greater things within the affordable housing piece of our business. With regard to what was the second piece of the question, Mark? Hey, Robin, can you put it back on?
Hey, Al. Hey, Al, let's pass the bell. Alonzo from Detroit.
Oh, Bell.
Yeah, that second question was where, if we wanted to, of course, we're in Detroit. If we wanted to purchase a home outside of Detroit or in another state, where will we go to find homes to invest in?
Let me tell you where we get our product from, our housing from. Particularly if you're a nonprofit, and even for profit doing affordable housing, you can qualify to be part of most of the product that I showed today. I actually purchased from Fannie Mae, and that was through their First Look program, and it's called Home Path. You know, so you absolutely can become a member of that, and submit an application to look at foreclosures before any, what they call the first look program. And the second piece, I get some of my housing through National Community Stabilization Trust, which again, both of those methods, both of those housing intermediaries, I actually provide and ask for a state footprint. So Pastor Bell, you would actually join both of those networks, but ask to see housing opportunities throughout the entire state. And by the way, speaking of that, don't build, if it's in, let's say, an hour driving distance, that's a good, that's probably a good, what do you call, zone to be in. Don't start doing this outside an hour where you can actually easily drive to the construction site or the house. Because remember, we made a mistake, and you have to I go to all my construction sites at least once a week. So I can see how they're doing, talk to the construction folks, and really get, keep an eye on the investment. But Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac do their first look program. And by the way, also, I purchased a few through tax sales. Each city and county, they have tax sales where they had a lien, and they repossessed a house because of unpaid taxes. That's another good venue to find product where you can, find them at a discount.
Okay.
We have one question from Sherry Bell from National Faith Home Buyers. What is the process you use to ensure that you had a competent, skilled, and honest general contractor that will ensure that the project is done in a cost-efficient and timely manner?
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at the question. I'm laughing because, listen, I hate lawyers. If there are any lawyers on the call, I apologize, but I hate you. And I have sued and fired many GCs, and I've learned the hard way. That's a good question. Honestly, and here's what I found. It took me many dollars and legal fees to come up with a simple formula in finding the right general contractor, which, by the way, folks, forget it if you do not have yourself a honest, capable general contractor. Without that, you will fail, undoubtedly. So I guess, Cheryl, what I'm saying is it's really measuring the honesty. And actually, what I mean by honesty is also being, not that they're going to steal so much, but hey, I don't understand this. I made a mistake. Sergio will tell you that every job he learns something new, and that's okay, right?
Always learning. I'm not trying to be know-it-all. I'm still learning, but that's life. I think we all learn. We're all going to be learning.
And the one thing I know about Sergio, honest. Be honest about, and we learn from remember, let's go out there and make new mistakes. So Cheryl, just make sure you find a GC that in your gut tells you they're honest, right? And by the way, a little telltale sign, if you get a GC that says, oh yeah, I can do it all, forget it. That's a liar. Nobody can do it all. I don't care what trade you're in. So find yourself what you feel is an honest person to be your general contractor, which is really your coach. No football team or basketball team has ever won a championship without a good coach, which is your general contractor.
Good. We had a hand raised from Jules Howie. You want to go ahead and unmute?
Hi, thanks, Robin. Al, wanted to speak to the question that was raised by Charles, because that's a critical issue with housing being underwater and you're not really being able to recoup your value of the rebuild. And one of the things that we did to kind of address that was we focused on whole block outcomes. And when you come into a community, there are like 2 or 3 row homes that are dilapidated and 8 to 10 that are occupied. And what we did is a strategy where we actually went and started getting those 2 or 3 that were dilapidated, rehabbing them, and being able to actually use them as rentals in the short term to then turn into home ownership. And what that did is that allowed us to actually get a whole block outcome. And it also allowed us to raise the value of the housing stock within this whole block. So it went from a valuation of $90,000 for a row home to $250,000 with our rehabbed row homes. And so it was a concerted strategy because most in the inner city where we are, most of the houses, most of the developers are underwater. And so you have to be creative in how you're going to be able to approach getting into the business and creating an opportunity from building your own comps. And we won't talk about the issue with having racist people come in and do your valuations. That's a whole nother story. But that was one of the ways that we tried to address that, Charles.
Yeah, that's a good comment on, listen, in building your housing, one thing you cannot do, what I've learned, and I've learned the hard way, is just don't take it personal. You've got to approach it like a math formula. Like if I see an area that I really want to build in, but the math just doesn't measure out, then I started at another area where it does measure out, but then bring that profit into an area and take a loss while I build up values. Because in this game, it's values, whether you're selling it, whether it's Robinhood, whether it's affordable housing. Remember, folks, maximization and utilization of scarce resources and opportunity cost. You've got to be driven by that, right? It's a chess game, so to speak. And I saw many opportunities in Detroit and Baltimore where you may want to help and build the center of that circle, but it isn't, you're going to lose money. So I would go out on the outskirts where we're close. And remember, and by the way, if you're going to build, I do my Robinhood, I'll build wherever. But my affordable housing, I target areas. And then I figure out how to build. I kind of go outward in, right? Outward, where the values, you'll get a higher return or you'll minimize your loss. But then that allows those values, increased values to increase, right? And one of the things, by the way, that I always do, as you see behind us, these pictures, I always have those pictures whenever we do a gut rebuild. I actually have pictures from every facet of the build out in the house while the appraiser's there. And I meet the appraiser so I can tell them the extent of what we build. So how do they know you just didn't paint and put up drywall? So that's very important. Show the extent via picture to the appraiser as it's being appraised.
I think that actually went into James Miller's question. How do you control the appraisal process?
It's again, you can't completely control it because it's a bit illegal. You control it. And not only that, but the one thing, folks, God is my witness. I will tell you, I have gotten into fights, not physical, but arguments with realtors who represented us, that because I would always take our gut rebuilds, especially, and I would get a 2020, they would, let's say the comp value of 250, and I would get 300. But what I did was, again, whenever we built, like for instance, one thing you're going to see next week or in the 2 sessions from now, we're going to show you a gut rebuild on how we increase that value significantly by 40%. For instance, the plumbing. We not only replace all the plumbing in the house, but we even replace the plumbing underneath the house and even to the street. Not at the street, but even and we take pictures of that. Everything we do, we take pictures of, we put it on a storyboard, and we make sure not only the appraiser sees it, but the buyers see it. So, and we found that actually helps us not only with the appraiser, but also the buyer, because the buyer sees that. Especially female buyers, they feel safer when you see all the electrical. You actually show the electrical, all 100% new. We actually got pictures where we actually showed the trenching of the yard, putting new water and sewer plumbing underneath. That So I may spend an extra $10,000 or rather $30,000 on plumbing underneath and sewer underneath, but it brings me 60,000 in value back to the appraisal. So, so to your point, how you actually control the appraisal by ensuring that you take that gut rebuild or that rebuild and change all the wiring in the house, change the plumbing 100%, change the HVAC, change the water and sewer underneath the ground, but you take pictures of it to document it. And that's going to help you in your appraisal and as you sell it. Even when I rent it, I show those pictures. So the renter feels very, very safe that, you know, they're living in almost basically a new home. New construction, by the way, I do the same thing with new construction because we go above and beyond what we build, what usually new construction people build out. So that's how you can't completely control it, but you can greatly, you can never control it, but you can greatly influence it by doing that.
All right, Al, you want to take one more question and then we'll close out?
Sure.
Okay, from Walter Williams, we have, what other sources of funding do you tap? Any private investors?
Oh, good question. Listen, folks. And this is why, please, Robin sent you a survey. What we're trying to build here between all of us is a network of builders. So yes, we're going to share our secret sauce and all the mistakes we've made so you can make fewer mistakes or go out and make a new mistake. But what's critical in this game is, again, capital. Capital, what we're doing here in building, this isn't brain surgery. This is not brain surgery. It's going to be easy, trust me. In 6 months from now, you're going to understand. That's why, by the way, we created a chat room at the housing. It's called www.housingpros.org. We're going to start sharing with each other our mistakes, our ideas, things we've learned, so we can, even purchasing. But to your point, capital is critical. What I have found, though, is private capital is too expensive for me. Why would I pay 18% for a private investor when I can go to a bank and my bank is giving me 3.5% interest? So that's where you should be. You should be with the bank between 3 and 5%. If you're paying more than 5%, they're stealing from you. And one of the things that we're actually going to go into a whole session, and I'm going to actually invite Truist Bank to talk about capital. We're going to talk just on bank capital because that's where you should be going, directly to the bank and getting a construction line of credit. And by the way, speaking of that, Dina, can you speak of how you went from no bank lines of credit to overnight lines of credit?
Well, first of all, Al, I just wanted to again thank you for doing this. But I can tell you that in the last 6 months, we've gone from a 500,000 line and a $750,000 line. And prior to that, we've been trying to get a line for about 8 years with very similar collateral.
You got it. So there's a whole story behind that, but I think what we're going to do on the next session, I think the next session, we're going to dedicate our next session, which we'll send everybody a link to. You got to register for it next Monday at noon. We're going to go gut rebuild, but we're going to dedicate a half hour of that session just on bank capital and how to approach bank capital or your banks. And I want to have a discussion with some of you around the country, what banks are doing, and more importantly, what banks are not doing for you in providing capital for your affordable housing program. I have 5 banks and I'm not worried about capital. Capital's there, but I have to push for capital, right? So that's something we want to get into. So that was an excellent question on capital. Again, I would stay away from the private investor because you end up becoming almost an employee with them versus a bank where, it's straight out 5%, 3%, and everything over that, it's your property. Because, and by the way, with capital, remember this, whether it's a private investor or whether it's a bank, it's not your money. It's not your money. Protect it. only the profit is your money. Remember, only the profit is your money, even in affordable housing.
Okay, if we can end it there, you can get back to the rest of your day. I've been dropping things in the chat. If you want to take a look, we have the survey link. Tell us your thoughts about not just this session, but sessions moving forward. What do you want to hear? What information do you want to receive? What resources do you want to receive? All that goes right into the survey. So please fill that out. It only takes about 7 minutes. And then we'll get that back and be able to cater these sessions moving forward to exactly the items that you need to be profitable with your affordable housing, with your nonprofit programs, small business programs. Also, register for your next session. That is January 31st at 12 o'clock. I put the registration link right in there. Oh, Eastern time, yes. So please click that link to register. And lastly, if you still want to chat with other people, if you have time for the rest of the day, visit us on thehousingpros.org/chat, or when you go to the website, click on the network button in the menu, and you'll just have to register for free, really quick, to go into the chat. And you can, it's just an open chat room, be able to discuss with other people if you want to continue to network. If you have any more questions, and maybe we can share some information. Oh, I'm sorry, I said lastly, one more thing. If you have questions, please send them to housingpros.fmcrc@gmail.com, and we can make sure get that email out to all of you. Dina,
Robin, I have just a very quick question. If we're already registered, do we need to continue to register for each class?
At the moment, yes. So you can register for each class because they may be different dates and times in February, March, and so on. And we want to have enough time to tell you all what's happening in this session. Like Al had mentioned, he wants to bring someone in from some of the banks. So you'll know ahead of time, okay, I definitely want to be at this session because I want to learn about accessing capital, of course. I want to learn more about framing. So you'll know what session is coming up.
And by the way, one of the reasons why we need to register is because when you register, we're going to, as we start deep diving into specifics and into the weeds, we're going to be sending you information before the session, like homework, right? Like financials, balance sheets, various aspects of the building specifically, so, and you're going to see. And I don't want to send that to everybody if you're not going to attend. But again, if you're attending a class and you're really interested in it, I want to focus on those people who've registered so we can really provide them information. Even though everyone who's ever registered, they'll continue to be on a distribution chain, knowing what we're doing and when the sessions are coming. And again, but please let us know via that survey what you need. What specifically do you need with housing development that we can address specifically in the upcoming sessions that we're going to have once every 2 weeks?